Welcome to episode 4 of Tool Use. Tool Use is a weekly conversation about helpful AI tools where we teach you what is possible today by giving you real projects that we put together. We also chat with other AI tool makers to give their perspective and their experiences. Today, we're focusing on tools to manage your time. Since starting Tool Use, there's one thing I've learned, that time is our most valuable resource, and being able to help prioritize it with a tool that manages it is worth its weight in gold. I'm Mike Bird, talking to the one and only Ty Fiero. Ty, how's it going?
Doing great, man. Spending way too much time this week trying to keep up with AI. It's all the different platforms and Twitter and YouTube. There's just a lot of content out there to consume on AI. So but I'm excited to have my favorite content right here for us today.
There we go. And that's the thing. If we're able to take advantage of the tools from last week, or the week before, from being able to take an entire YouTube playlist and summarize it down, helps save a little bit of time. But man, it's just a never-ending fire hose of information in this space.
It really is. I've actually been using that little YouTube playlist thing every day, which is kind of fun. Every time I go to YouTube and I see video and I don't want to watch it, but I want to learn from it, and I just add it to my little playlist, and then I'll go and hit it. And it makes me a little report. I really need to set it up to where it can send me an email every day, so it's just constantly sending me information. But yeah, sounds fun.
Yeah. Well, should I just get into my demo then?
Yeah, let's do it. Show me what you got this week.
So I put together an activity tracker. I want to try to optimize the time I spend throughout the day, see where I'm wasting time, and I thought it might be neat to have just a little process running on my computer that will help do this for me. And then, as per usual with us, I have it synced with Obsidian, so then I can actually have all the raw data there that I can use as an input to other processes. We're just going to go over to the activity tracker project and then run it with Python. And now you have the ability to type in your activity, but I kind of like having it with voice. As just a quick little prototype, all it does is record a 5-second clip of what you say. I would really like it to stop when it hears a pause, starts when it hears noise, stops when it pauses. But for the time being, 5-second clip is fine. So we have activity tracker. Now, activity tracker will show you if you have an activity in progress. The objective for now is just have one at a time, because you should be singularly focused. Multitasking is bad for context switching. You can also show the stats and get out of it. So let's start with recording a podcast. And then it uses Whisper to show you're recording a podcast, and then it passes it off to an LLM, in this case Grok, to return what the category is. The objective of categorizing it is so I can use statistics later to see where am I spending my most time, or is there a way to optimize, am I working versus exercise, things like that. So it's just going to be recording in the background, and you just leave it. You leave it running, and then you can see here, I've pointed it to the Obsidian vault. You can set it to any vault you want, and what it'll do is it'll track your activities throughout the day, give you a little summary. So let's say we're done recording the podcast. You hit 1, stop the activity. There's nothing in progress. It says it was 33 seconds, as you can see here, and just gives a little timestamp. Updates the total activities to 4. And I'm like, okay, I've been doing some things throughout the day. I'd like to get some stats, see how much I'm doing. So it gives you the printout of how long you've been doing different things. I would like to combine this by category, where all audio goes together, all work goes together. But then it also sends it off to an LLM to get you insights on how you're spending your time. So you can actually say, hey, I have a skewed ratio. The amount of time spent on audio preparation is not balanced, showcasing greater utilization of hour for leisure and grooming. So if you want to take the LLM's advice on how you should spend your time, it gives you that option. It'll also save it into your database so you can compare across different days. And then this way, I feel I will be able to get deeper insight on how I'm spending my time, and with a bit of AI help, kind of nudge myself towards more productive use of my time so I can, enjoy my priorities more. So really quick demo this week, but that's about it.
Oh, wow, that's really cool. And you also are making these demos so pretty every week now. It's making me have to step up my game a little bit. But now, I would use this tool. That sounds really interesting. It would tell me how many times I'm slacking off on Twitter all the time. Actually, I probably wouldn't tell it that I'm on Twitter because I'd be embarrassed that I'm on Twitter so much. But I just record the productive things.
One cool aspect to this too is being able to use it in conjunction with other things, where if you can actually have a script that you run for our example, when we start the video editing, when we take the MP4 and feed it through our pipeline, if we can have it also call this and say starting editing, and then it can start tracking that. It doesn't have to necessarily be the personal use of time, but how are you allocating resources? Any type of time tracking thing. If you want to track the progress of using the same example, video editing, you can actually have it send out a ping to the script saying like, transcription has stopped, now we're starting the processing, and it goes back, and it'll actually update timestamps so you can track over time, are different LLMs performing better than others, are there room for optimizations, different spot. So I think the ability to open up insights and analyze across time is very powerful, and having it be programmatically determined like this will allow it just be injected into other processes. So I would love for people to play around with it and see, because I intend on using it mostly for my own personal time management. But if you want to get more analytics into different processes or flows you have, it works with there, and I think it has a lot of potential.
You could also use AppleScript to see what the active app is at any time while it's just running in the background, which would be a little creepier maybe, but you'd be able to actually see what app is constantly open while you're working. And I know there's some softwares like Rescue Time and stuff that do that, but like with AppleScript, it's really easy to see what your active app is at any time, and even when you switch apps, which is kind of crazy, but you'd actually be able to see like you spent 4 hours in Chrome versus in VS Code.
Yeah, get back to work, devs. And this is good thing. If it's local and open source, you're able to know what it's actually tracking, what it's actually doing, and not sending that data anywhere unintentionally.
Very true. That's the right way to do it.
All right, Ty, let's see what you got this week.
I think you're going to like it. All right, well, for my demo this week, I made a tool called Calvin. And what Calvin is it's a CLI app that's kind of like a little chatbot, and it's a calendar assistant that can integrate with Google and create Google Calendar events, edit calendar events, delete calendar events, and those types of things. And it's using Claude 3.5 Sonnet behind the scenes, and with tool use, which is hilarious. So it's actually using Google tools. Okay, so I can ask it something like, I need to get groceries tomorrow, but I don't know when I'm free. Do you know? Let's see. So it's going to think, and it's going to get calendar events. So let's see here. It's going to check to see when I'm free on Sunday, get free time, and say, oh, yeah, looks like I'm free from 8:30 to 10. Wow, that's great. Got plenty of free time tomorrow. So it looks like I have a lot of free time, and yeah, plenty of free time. Okay, so now I'm going to be like, oh, it gives me recommendations. Perhaps at 9 a.m. when most stores open, or 2 p.m. after lunch. Let's do it after lunch. And it's going to think for a second. And it's going to create an event. And boom, it created an event on my calendar to go grocery shopping. And so it actually used the tool, and it set up description for it. And there's like a link that I can click to go see it. And so, yeah, that's pretty cool. But let's also have it try something a little more interesting. Okay, so now let's say, hey, I really want to get more fit and work out more, but I realistically will only work out if it's on my calendar. Can you make me some morning workout events for next week? Let's see, it's going to think. I wonder if it'll ask me what time I want it. But, oh no, it's just going to make all my morning workouts. So it can make multiple events at once, which is pretty cool. So it can make, I now have a morning workout on the 10th, the 11th, the 12th, the 13th. Right on, okay. So it's going to make me a workout for every day of the week, which is pretty ambitious. But yeah, that's okay. Oh, it's even suggesting me how I can get prepared, getting my workout clothes ready the night before, and so that's pretty cool. And then I can also say, hey, also, I'm recording a podcast with Mike next week. Can you find a free slot on Friday and book a 2-hour recording session? So now I should go see what my free time is on Friday. And, oh, man, really? 8:30 to 10? I don't have anything planned on Friday? Cool. All right, that's great. All right, so now it's going to make an event. Let's see, what time did it book it for? 2 to 4. Yeah, okay, that sounds good enough for me. Perfect. All right, so that's kind of the gist of the demo. We can do other things. We can also delete calendar events, it can edit calendar events, it can make multiple calendar events, it can do all sorts of kinds of things like that. And the real idea behind making this for me was not to have a chat bot in my terminal that makes calendar events for me, but it's really to have the tool set to be able to make calendar events programmatically with AI. So now I have local tools that I can port from this project to any of our future projects that can create calendar events based off of some result. So that was the primary reason I wanted to make this. So now I have a whole set of tools to use in the future. But yeah, that's my demo.
Dude, that was super cool. I think this is great. I think there's going to be so much more potential for just automating workflows as soon as calendar events get into it. I know I rely on my calendar immensely. This activity tracker was intended to augment something like this. So now we have a system where we can not only set schedules, but we can monitor it and see how we do to improve upon it.
All right, Mike, what do you got for us this week? What's something that we should know?
I wanted to talk about a model that just dropped. And I know I've said before, like I try to not stay up to date on all the latest model drops because there's so many, but this one's sweet. So OLMOE, I actually don't know how it's pronounced, but OLMOE is Open Mixture of Expert Language Models. What's cool about this one is everything is open. So it's not just open weights that you will hear a lot of people conflate with open source, but this one has open data, open code, open logs, and tons of checkpoints. So you're able to fully replicate this from scratch. And the group that put this together at the Allen Institute did an amazing job with experiments. There's actually, of the 61 pages in this report, tons of them are just experiments they ran where they just tweaked one hyperparameter. So there's a lot of good knowledge in this. So OLMOE reached the best performance and cost ratio for its active parameter size. So for a little bit of context, for just in case people don't know, with mixture of experts for these language models, instead of the classical dense models that have every parameter activated for every input, with mixture of expert, it's sparse. So not everyone is activated. So it's a 7 billion parameter model, but only 1 billion of them are used per input token. And when you compare it to other ones that have a billion parameters activated, it blows them away. So it's a lot more computationally efficient. However, you still have to store all 7 billion in memory. So it's not memory efficient. So there is a trade-off there, but it's a really cool option to explore. When Mixtral came out, it really blew people away. So a mixture of experts is something that I think people are going to continue to explore because there's something there. There's something about being able to have a router level get optimized to pick certain experts within a model and have them activated. So for this one, there's 64 experts. 8 of them get activated. So just 1/8 of it gets activated every time, but its performance has been really good. One thing to note though, which they found, is that fine-tuning is difficult with mixture of experts. So there's still going to be some exploration there because having these small size, low parameter models are very fast and computationally efficient. But if you can't fine-tune it to work well with your use case, the practicality of it's limited. Now, because everything's open, this is like a knowledge gift to the world. So there's still going to be a lot of value here, but I think an area of exploration, which I hope more people take on, is how we can better fine-tune mixture of experts, because there's risk of overfitting to certain experts because you just have more components when you have the router level on top of all these experts. They notice some experts get specialized on certain tasks. Some experts get specialized on certain inputs. So we need to understand this more, and running experiments like this will be very helpful. Now, I have run it locally. You can head over to their GitHub to download it and give it a try. One thing of note is that because it's just recently been added to the transformers library, you will need to build transformers from source, so from the GitHub repo, until the next release is out. By the time you're watching this, the release might be out, so not a concern, but I did want to make sure people are aware of that. And on the Hugging Face page, you can actually get access to all of the data, the checkpoints, the logs. They used weights and biases for observability, and they included those reports. So if you're interested to see the loss curve and how it reaches performance so much faster than dense models, that's all available. So while this might not be something I recommend you investigate the production value right away, the fact that this was created and put out there is actually a wonderful gift of knowledge. And I'm very happy that Allen Institute did this, and I hope more people explore it. So that's what I think you should know.
Right on. Shout out to Allen Institute too, Seattle-based. So props to them for going full open source. I like that little diagram they had of like what 7B models are the most open source, and it was like clearly this open source mixture of experts is like the most open source with its open weights and open data set and open logs and open weights and bias. Like that's wild how open source that is. And I think mixture of experts models in general are so interesting. I mean, it's also what's rumored to power GPT-4 under the behind the scenes too. And so I feel like it just kind of makes sense from a architecture standpoint to have a bunch of different experts doing their own things. And I feel like it would be great for model performance.
Yeah, and I'm still firmly under the belief that the future of AI is going to be a well-orchestrated swarm of highly specialized models and agents versus these monolithic ones. The monolithic ones will still have its purpose, like GPT 5, 6, 7 are going to have a lot of value for the world, but I think most use cases you'll find will be these very niche, very specialized, almost like mixture of experts becoming mixture of agents, which has been explored because we don't want to have to rely on these hyper centralized, hyper powerful models when we can distribute, decentralize, and leverage a lot of benefits that way.
Totally makes sense. I think one of the craziest parts about mixture of experts, I learned this from the Mistral mixture of experts, Mixtral, I guess. But I was naive and thought that like a mixture of experts was like each expert was an expert in a particular thing. Like it's you have your coding expert and your writing expert and this expert, and it kind of just uses all of those. But it's way more meta than that. Or it actually like when it's training, it's kind of decides which expert should learn which thing, and so each expert is an expert. We don't actually know what they're experts in, which I think is so crazy to me. It's such a wild thing. I really love the 7B model because they're so small and they're kind of cute. They're just like tiny little models that you can run really fast, and having a blast with them.
Ty, what should we know this week?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest news to come out this week is the rumor of GPT-Next. I think it was OpenAI Japan. There was some presentation and they talked about GPT-Next, and they talked about how potentially it's 100 times more powerful than what exists currently, which is pretty insane. And it's also interesting that they mentioned that it's not from more training, it's actually from different like architecture improvements, which is like terrifying but also super exciting, and like 100x improvement over GPT-4. Like can hardly wrap my head around what that actually looks like. And then there's a separate rumor that's kind of a part of all that ChatGPT might cost $2,000 a month to interact with GPT-Next, which is kind of insane when you think about it. Like $2,000 a month, like that's like enterprise pricing. And this is just going to be to talk to their next gen models. And I'm not sure why they're going for the $2,000 a month. It's either because it's costing them a lot to train the Orion project and these other models right now, and they need to make more money, or maybe it is just 100 times better. If it's 100 times better, $20 a month times 100 is $2,000. So maybe that's what it is. But it's kind of ushering in a world of AI employees. Like that's what you pay a very cheap employee, yet it's a very, very powerful model. So it sounds expensive off the top, but it might actually end up being quite the deal if it's as good as we think it's going to be. But I'm really excited to see what it ends up being.
Yeah, I think that same thing, sticker shock. You hear that for software, it sounds outrageous. It sounds like we're buying 100 seats to something. But a lot of people have been making the argument that if it can actually provide $2,000 a month in value, that sounds very reasonable. Also, I don't know how people feel about this, but I get a lot more than the monthly subscription fee to Anthropic's Claude every single month. Like the time it saves me, the output it gives me, I would pay more for it. I hope they don't increase prices, but I still would subscribe to it at that price. If they can provide a model that is actually the equivalent of a junior to intermediate developer, I know a lot of people say the current models are at that level. They still require so much direction, supervising, hand-holding that I don't feel it's justifiable with the current state to go anywhere near $2,000. But I don't even think 100x improvement. If realistically it was 5x better, like that puts in the range where like that might be worth $2,000 a month. So I don't know. They're such a robust rumor mill that OpenAI puts out that I don't want to get too caught up in what like people are saying now. But I mean, leaks, as companies get bigger, leaks get more likely. Like you can see with Apple, they used to be locked down until the day of presentation. Now everyone knows everything that's coming days, if not weeks, before it actually happens. So as OpenAI gets bigger, it wouldn't surprise me if more of these rumors become true. And it's exciting to hear that the technology is reaching a level where they're even considering charging this type of thing because they expect it to provide that much value.
Yeah, and my prediction is that they are kind of floating this rumor of $2,000 a month to see what the community's reaction to it is. But I don't know if you remember, but back in the day when ChatGPT was about to come out, they were going to have the ChatGPT Pro plan, and I don't remember exactly the number they floated it out as, but there was like suggesting that it was going to be like 40, or maybe it was $60 a month, and then they ended up being $20 a month. Like they ended up making it really affordable. So I feel like it's going to be the same thing where they're going to be like, oh, it's $2,000 a month, and then it's going to end up being like $200 a month, maybe $400 a month, which is still a lot, but I don't know. At the $400 a month price point, I'd actually consider paying for it. So I mean, I think that's probably where it'll end up. I wish they would do some sort of tiered thing. I mean, I know companies love their monthly recurring revenue, so because some people just don't use it for the month, but like, let me talk to it 4 messages a day for $50 a month. Like, even though you give 4 messages a day, like that's fine, rather than having full access for $2,000 a month. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm excited to see where this plays out, and I'm actually going to OpenAI Dev Day on October 1st, which I'm sure I don't know if they'll announce it then, but they'll definitely announce some exciting stuff. And so I'm curious to see what all they'll announce.
A little bit jealous you're going to be down there. There's going to be a lot of cool people. So if anyone watching sees Ty, make sure you say hi.
Yeah, hit me up. If any of you guys want to be on the podcast too, we could do some sort of live podcast from OpenAI Dev Day. I'd be down for that.
Today we're talking to Orlando. He's building Toolhouse and doing a lot of other cool things, and we're excited to have you on. Orlando, tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited. I love your podcast video. I don't even know what you call it. Is it a podcast? It's on YouTube, so I guess it's like a series. Yeah.
Yeah, like a bit of a show, a bit of a podcast. We're still figuring things out, but we're just building.
Yeah. So again, thanks for having me. My name is Orlando. All my friends call me Orly. Mike, I met you at Open Interpreter when I was hacking around Open Interpreter in my previous company / startup. A little bit about myself. I moved to the US 9 years ago. I'm European. You can probably tell by my accent. And yeah, I've been in startups my whole life as an operator, so to speak, only more recently. Before I was just a regular employee, always in developer tooling and like growth of like open source projects, etc., etc. So that's pretty much about me. Right now, I'm working at Toolhouse. Like you were mentioning, it's the fastest way to give superpowers to LLMs. So if you're a developer, you want to check it out, feel free to reach out, or toolhouse.ai, and you can go from there.
Amazing. And love the idea of working with developer tools. When did you kind of make the transition from like traditional dev tools to AI-centric ones?
That is a great question. I've used, it started all when ChatGPT came out, and, I was like, okay, let's give this a go. Like, what's this whole AI hype about? Funnily enough, in my, college education, I had actually some artificial intelligence modules like that I had taken, et cetera, et cetera. But I had never considered like AI to like boom like that. And I guess like most of us, right? Like we just saw ChatGPT and then they released the API. Was that before or after? I forget. And then I started hacking around. But the reality, it's like I really started in December 2023. We were a previous company trying to revolutionize the way we would like debug software, and AI was really helpful at like understanding like error logs, etc. And that's when I started hacking around with it. And then going back to Open Interpreter, like I've pretty much read all of the code of the early versions of Open Interpreter to try and understand what the heck was going on. It was it is such an amazing project, to the point where we tried to build our own, and we sort of did like a smaller version of Open Interpreter, but it was Node.js. Anyways, and then I've always been really into like side projects and hackathons and all that kind of stuff. So I always try to keep up to date with like all these like new models, new techniques. But it's really hard, right? Like we were saying earlier before the pre-show, I guess, segment. It's so fast and it's really hard to keep up. Like while you were if you think like it's hard to keep up with the JavaScript frameworks, think about AI as a 10x, right? Like release cycle kind of thing. So that's a little bit about how when I started. It was, like I said, December 2023-ish. And before that it was just like for fun. But like I took it serious around that time.
my timeline's very similar. I put out a VS Code extension that took GPT-3, brought it in, nowhere near the GitHub Copilot level, but just something to play around with. And then you start seeing the power of it, and then it's just been uphill ever since.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, the AI space is so busy right now. It's kind of crazy to keep up with it all. And there's so many different aspects of AI, right? There's fine tuning of small models, and there's big models, and there's function calling, and there's all sorts of things. But is there any field or aspect of AI that you're most interested in or most excited about right now?
Two things. Whole of last year, I was really into the vision models, the ones where you kind of give it an image, kind of lava centric models. I was super into that. Did a lot of research. Image generation models the recent one Flux, a lot of fun stuff I've built with that. In terms of more recently, the vertical, obviously company that I founded with Daniele, my co-founder, is function calling. So the ability of using tools and giving superpowers to LLMs. I think we're at this stage where function calling is super powerful, but I'm really excited for the next wave, right? When function calling is gonna be, I think that's my prediction. The LLM will self-write the tools that it needs to use to achieve things. So even less developer, the final user of tools will be the LLM that will try to understand by itself how to build and use, etc., etc. So super excited about tools, but again, like I said, vision models, generative image stuff, all that kind of good stuff. And more recently, I guess voice. I'm trying to learn more about things that you can talk to, and I've seen some crazy presentations, but yeah.
Yeah, the multimodality future is just right around the corner. Very exciting. Really liked how you talked about how LLMs went to the point of building tools, because in the previous episode, Ty put out Scriptomatic, which is a script that just self-iterates and actually tests itself until it gets it correct, still requiring a human to interject. But we're not that far off from establishing the plumbing where we're actually hey, AI, here's our objective, develop any tools you need with this toolkit, and go for it. Is that kind of how you see the direction of function calling going, or what's the path to get to that crazy future?
Yeah, I think there are some projects out there like Gorilla LLM, Open Functions. They're basically building in that direction where there's this agentic mindset that's really popular in the space, I would say, where the human has an objective, and then the different parts, the little agents, depending if you have one or more or whatever, will try to figure out how to get to that objective. And so I'm really, I guess, bullish on the fact that eventually agents will self-improve as they execute. By that, what I mean is if there is an API, say, I don't know, SendGrid, right? You want to send emails. There won't be a need for a developer to write that function call anymore, because there will be a specialized agent which will write that part of the code that it can then be told to kind of the orchestrator agent, and it then will be able to use that code that it's been written to achieve a specific task. So yeah, basically building for LLMs by LLMs is going to be the next big iteration. But until then, it's all about quality, right? Developers, super important, because we know what needs to happen in the big life cycle, right? And I don't think we're right there with agents. They're still kind of struggling with quality and accuracy, speed, and yeah.
I think some of the most exciting stuff for me right now is the AI coding and AI coding agents. Obviously, I work at Open Interpreter, so that's pretty exciting for me. But
yeah,
playing with Cursor, and I played with Replic's new agent yesterday, and it's really exciting. And we started this podcast 6 weeks ago, I guess, and we were we'll build something new every week. It's kind of ambitious, to build something every week. But now I go into Claude projects, and I'm all right, make me something that does this, and it just spits it out. It's crazy. It's wild how fast coding AI is progressing, and I love that we can build projects that used to take 3 months in a weekend now. And so I wonder kind of how the the non-technical community becomes more technical, and how code kind of becomes more of a commodity. Yeah, I'm just really interested in this type of thing.
working from a co-working space where I see a lot of this happening. So I'll give you a little bit of what I've seen, I guess, and that answers kind of partly my perspective on your question. Back in the day, maybe like 3 years ago or before COVID, whatever, people would have like their laptop or their computer main screen. It would be like, their work, and then they would have like Google search or Stack Overflow on the right. Then ChatGPT comes out, and everybody has ChatGPT on their second monitor or like, on the side of your screen. And now, like you said, Cursor, like everybody seems to be using Cursor. Like if I walk out of here, literally everybody is either using Claude or Cursor or some other kind of like GitHub Copilot plugin. And I have friends in this, literally on this floor where I'm at, which have shipped, like you said, in a weekend, things that otherwise they would have never been able to ship, because although they are maybe computer science grads, they might have not had the exposure to like the, actually getting a job as a developer or programmer. Like maybe they went into data or something where, it's less about the web or like understanding architecture of systems. And so now suddenly, like they just understand the high level concepts, and by iterating really, really fast with all these amazing new tools, they can just get things done. And again, like throw back to like Open Interpreter, right? Like it's kind of the same where you need something done, and then Open Interpreter figures out how to do it. And it's this whole like AI helping humans. It's really kind of in a scary way giving us superpowers, and now everybody's getting superpowers.
All right, I hear you have something to show us. You want to share your screen and we can see what you're working on?
Absolutely. Yep. So this is something I built really quickly for our podcast here. Of course, I use Cursor. So this is basically what I built. It's a tool which calls OpenAI, and it basically looks for information from our database of, call it leads or contacts, people that we've interacted with. It basically helps me look into our database, and it uses like LLMs to do that. And so the interesting part is like I use Toolhouse, of course, since I work there and I'm building this, to basically ask the LLM. I'll basically launch this. And so the first question is like, which company are you looking for? And I will say something like Grok, like I was running, see like, who do I know from Grok? Like if I want to meet with someone, I just want to like query the database. And so the idea is like, it's going to go and like connect through Zapier to our HubSpot, because I didn't have time to build that connection and getting all these API keys, stuff. So I basically cheated. I used Zapier for a bunch of this stuff. And then you can see I have this like debug statement where it's basically telling me which tools do I have enabled right now for doing a function call. And so I have like the send email tool, which will basically allow me to send emails to people. And then I have the get contact information somewhere here. Maybe I can make this larger. Whoops. If I scroll back to the bottom. Here we go. So I have this. Wait, let's see if I can get some more area here. All right, perfect. And so the get contact information, which is a local tool that I basically built here, you have a function definition, and then you basically run the code, and you get this back. Here we go, and it found a contact. I don't know why it says OpenAI. I guess it kind of hallucinated that, so that's for me to fix. But I got a name back and an email back. So Carrie Noel from Grok. I now know that I have a way to contact someone that works at Grok, because the way how this saves me time is I might be not having, I need to know about people that work at certain companies so I can set up like webinars, or maybe we want to do a hackathon together, and I might have not met this person, but someone else in the team might have. And so they add their information to HubSpot, and I can go and query HubSpot in this like LLM-y way, whatever. And the idea is like, as I integrate more functionalities, like sending emails, or maybe finding like tweets from this person, I can get a much better, I guess, data view of who this person is and how I can interact with them when I reach out to them. So I mean, this is like, like a 1 hour hackathon that I did before jumping here on the pod, but it kind of gives you the idea of like having multiple tools and using them to like extract information from like in a RAG way, but using a chat interface to like talk to the LLM. And so yeah, that's all I have to share. Very quick and very, very fun.
I toyed around with the idea of having a wrapper around a database to convert natural language into queries. Do you develop a tool to actually like generate SQL, or how does that conversion happen? Like, how did you actually extract that information out of there?
The way I built this is I made a local tool. So in tools, you have, the ones that at least on Toolhouse through our SDK, you have like cloud tools, basically the ones that are running on our infrastructure, and you can call through the SDK, and they're very simple because they're like one-click install, right? So if you want to send, like, for example, an email or an SMS or do a search on, the web, you just install these tools, and I call them cloud tools, and then the LLM will decide which tool to use to do that action that you've asked, like, hey, if you want to do like a search, right? It's not going to use the send email tool, but it's going to use the web search tool, so to speak. When you write a local tool instead, you basically can write whatever you want, right? It's hosted on your machine. And so in my case, my local tool was a way to get data out of HubSpot, right? And so I wrote the code to basically query HubSpot through their API. And I did basically a little bit of hacking around with like Zapier and whatnot. And I asked for a company name, and the final output is like information about this person that was in our HubSpot instance. And so when I used the Toolhouse SDK to call the cloud tools or the local tools, because you can use them together, the LLM decides, how do I get that information out of HubSpot? Do I need to use a cloud tool, or am I going to use something local? And because there was no HubSpot cloud tool, but there was only a local tool that had HubSpot in the description, then it decided to use the one that I wrote locally. And so by defining the input schema locally, I can basically inform the LLM on which tool to use, so it picks it and decides to use it and then use that data after the query has happened. So there was no SQL involved. It was mostly just like an API wrapper to a Zapier like workflow that I built that involves HubSpot at the end.
Very cool. I like it. I actually went through the onboarding for Toolhouse, and I saw like the default tool to kind of like just get you on is using Exa. And in the past episode, we did Exa and just love it. And the idea of not having to now granted for us at least with the practice we've had, Exa is pretty easy to set up, but being able to just incorporate as a tool into your call, so you don't even have to write that code locally. You're just like, hey, Toolhouse, ping this site that's gonna crawl or scrape and do it. It's very appealing.
Yeah. It's all about the speed and the quality. Like the aim of Toolhouse is to write the best tools possible so that developers like ourselves, we don't have to write all those like input definition schema, I think they're called input schemas, and then all the code to like execute further actions, because the tools are written for you and they have their own definition in the cloud, right? And through the SDK you can call it. And of course that, with accuracy and speed, there's a lot of responsibilities, and that's where we hope to do and leave an impact on the community.
I was just playing around with Anthropic tool calling and building some tools there and registering the tools and building the schemas, and it was kind of annoying. There was a lot of steps to it, and so, using a tool like Toolhouse to make it really simple, I think that's really cool. It's also, you're a perfect podcast host or episode for this because we're literally called tool use. So anything that makes tool use easier, I love it. Great.
Yeah, I'm very happy that y'all invited me to this because it's literally the best way to like talk about tools. Today I showed you how I built a small local tool. There are many more tools that you can use, and the world, there's going to be more and more and more people building tools. And I hope like similar to like Airbnb, some people in the future will start wanting to add their tools to Toolhouse. And so we need to figure it out, like, are we going to support like a lot of like open source contribution? Are we going to like vouch the code and then self-host it? There's a lot of like implications. And as you know, like open source is amazing, but then everybody wants like open source, free, and amazing reliability. So sometimes it gets tough, right? You need to kind of decide like which lever are we pulling more on? And so for now we're focusing at Toolhouse specifically, but I guess in the world, like people who are writing tools, they're gonna decide whether they want to open source their code and so maybe not make a profit from the code they wrote, but in exchange they contribute to the open source world and community. So it's very philosophical in a way. I'm a big fan of open source. I've contributed throughout my life, and I think there are other ways to make money that does not, you do not hurt the open source community. And so it's all about sharing, it's all about caring, of course, and it's all about like building cool stuff with other people. Because some people like myself and probably you when you're like releasing something and people start using it for free and they're learning from it and they are contributing back, hopefully it makes me like want to get out of bed with a big smile in the morning, whereas some other places where everything is closed source and you're very like money driven, it's like, yeah, it's nice to but like what's the impact? Like you're just helping people become a little bit more greedy. And so anyways, I don't know, just food for thought, I guess.
One thing I've noticed is, especially in this age of everyone having so much access to LLMs, people are going to start building their own tools tailored to their specific use case. One of the tools I built that we featured very early on was just this AI CLI, where you enter in what you want it to do and it'll spit out the command. That was inspired because GitHub Copilot has CLI offering for a bit. They might still have it, I'm not sure. I was in the beta program and then just kind of dropped off after. Yeah. But there's no need for a company like Microsoft to have control over that domain when it's so simple to do. So by having Claude help me write it, do a few tweaks to make it like aesthetically the way I want, and just releasing to the world, it might inspire someone else to be like, oh, I've seen this big corporation release this tool that costs $20 a month. I can build it for free and give it away. So it's a really like ripple effect of just trying to create this public good that is open source code.
Yep, 100%. And inspiring people like you did, like on Twitter or any other social media platform, to basically start using these tools, like basically education, right? Like we're going towards a world where, wanting to build things is going to be easier and easier, especially obviously online, right? And because everybody's connected online, it's easier to like start building something for fun when you're inspired by someone who's openly talking about it. The code is open, you can see how they did it. And now with all this assistant from like AI, et cetera, it's becoming even more easier to write and to learn and to debug and to test and to like just explain what happened in this 10 lines of code, which I use all the time when I see something that I have no clue about. I don't have to bother anybody. I'm just so self-sufficient. As long as I have money, to, I guess, call Claude or something running like Llama or something local, like as long as I can run it, like, yeah, I can be self-sufficient.
Well, I love it. This has been great.
Was there anything you wanted to plug before we go?
I would love if people would check out toolhouse.ai. This is the company and startup that I'm working on like full time right now. Other than that, like if you have any questions, feel free to reach out on the Open Interpreter Discord. My name there is Orly, just like it's written down here in the corner. And otherwise, x.com, my @ is sunglasses face, just like the emoji. And that's it. Thank you for your time. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We'll have a link down in the show notes so people can get there really quick. And looking forward to chatting more in the future.
Alrighty. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day wherever you are.
Another great episode. Really fun talking to Orlando. Good guy. I hope you'll check out Toolhouse. We'll have a link down below so people can access it. One thing we're really curious about is how people are resonating with this. Do you like the structure? Do you like the format? Please let us know, because we find maybe we want to separate the tutorials from the conversation. Maybe we want to go a little more in depth to teach people rather than just show people. So please let us know what you'd like to see. We do want to evolve the show into something that's truly beneficial, so let us know. But in the meantime, Ty, always a pleasure. Had a lot of fun this week.
Yeah, it's been great, man. I'm looking forward to next week. I'm not sure what I'm going to build, but it's going to be better than yours.
Ooh. Shots fired. I'm definitely excited too for the guest we're having next week. But let's leave a little mystery there. We'll announce it later.
I like it.
Excellent, buddy.
I'm shooting shots at you this week, but that's okay.
Yeah, we still need to get a judge. We still need to figure out who really wins, but we'll get there.
One day. All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Well, this is great, man. I'll talk to you next week.
Yep. Have a good one.
See ya.